Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Ah.
Today we're tackling something I know we all want to get better at, spontaneous speaking,
Oh, yeah.
our source.
Mm-hmm.
A really cool YouTube video from Stanford Graduate School of Business.
Okay.
It's called Think Fast, Talk Smart, Communication Techniques. So get ready for some light bulb moments, tips you can actually use, and maybe even a chuckle or two along the way.
You know, it's funny how often we need to speak off the cuff, right? Like from introducing someone at a dinner party to that surprise question your boss throws at you.
Oh, for sure.
Being quick on your feet can totally change how confident you feel and how people see you.
Absolutely. And this video, it jumps right in with this brain teaser, and it really shows just how tricky our minds can be.
Oh, interesting.
It's called the F counting challenge, and you basically count the Fs in a sentence.
Okay.
And it trips almost everyone up.
Interesting. What's fascinating about that challenge is it's not just a fun trick, It shows how we get in our own way when we try to speak spontaneously. We overthink, we aim for perfection, and then ironically that makes us less effective.
So true. And I think that's where anxiety comes in. The speaker mentioned a whopping 85% of people, get nervous about public speaking.
Yeah, it's a huge number. But instead of trying to make those nerves disappear, which is almost impossible, the video gives 3 research-backed ways to manage them. And the first one is surprisingly simple.
Okay. I'm all ears. Hit me with it.
It's called greeting your anxiety. So when you feel those butterflies, right, instead of letting them turn into a full-blown panic attack, you just acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Say to yourself, okay, this is me. I'm feeling nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taking a deep breath and accepting the feeling without letting it take over.
Yeah, I like that. Instead of fighting it, you're sort of making peace with it.
Exactly. And the second technique is about changing your mindset. So instead of thinking of it as a performance, imagine it's just a conversation. And this helps especially in those unplanned situations where you're really interacting with people, not giving a formal speech, right?
So how do we actually make that mental shift? What are the concrete steps?
So the speaker suggests a few things, right? Think about how you just chat with friends. You ask questions. You use we instead of just I, and you're genuinely interested in what they have to say.
Yeah.
Bringing that same vibe into your speaking makes things more relaxed, more like a back and forth.
Makes so much sense. It's about building a connection, even when you're the one doing most of the talking.
Exactly. Now, the third technique for taming those nerves is all about being present,
Right.
Because when we get stuck in our heads worrying about what could go wrong, we kind of disconnect from the moment. Right.
And that's when those nerves can really spiral out of control.
Yeah.
So how do we stay grounded when we're put on the spot?
Well, there are a bunch of things you can try. Physical activity, music, even tongue twisters, the speaker's favorite tongue twister. And get ready for this one. It's I slit a sheet I slit, and on that slitted sheet I sit. Want to try it with me?
I slit a sheet I slit, and on that slitted sheet I sit. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Right.
I can see how that would make you focus.
Right. Saying that takes so much concentration, it kind of pulls you right into the moment.
Yeah.
And as a bonus, it warms up those vocal cords.
Double win. Okay, so we've got these 3 techniques for dealing with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledge it, reframe it as a conversation, and be present.
Mm-hmm.
But what about actually delivering a spontaneous speech?
Right.
Where do we even begin?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The speaker says the first step is to just get out of your own way.
Hold on. What does that even mean?
Okay. So it means letting go of that need to be perfect, to have all the answers, to deliver some mind-blowing speech,
Yeah.
It's about being okay with the unexpected and just going with the flow.
Okay.
And to make this point, the speaker actually uses an improv concept.
Oh, cool.
It's called dare to be dull.
Dare to be dull. That sounds so counterintuitive. Shouldn't we aim to be the opposite of dull?
It does sound strange, but it's really powerful. So by taking off the pressure to be brilliant, you actually become more spontaneous and authentic. You
Right.
stop overthinking every word and gesture, and that just comes across as more natural, more engaging.
So it's about embracing imperfection
Yeah,
and letting your personality shine through.
you got it. To help people experience this firsthand, the speaker introduces a game.
Okay, fun.
It's called Shout the Wrong Name. So imagine you're looking around the room and you're pointing at things,
Okay.
but instead of saying what they are, you shout out a completely different word.
So if I pointed at my coffee cup, I might shout kangaroo.
Exactly. The point is to break free from those like automatic responses and make your brain think differently. And what's interesting is people often start making patterns or coming up with words in advance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they might go through like a list of animals or colors or even start rhyming.
Oh, wow. So even when we're trying to be spontaneous, our brains are still looking for some kind of structure or control.
Precisely. But that's the beauty of this game, you know?
Yeah.
It makes us aware of those tendencies and encourages us to just let go of them.
Right.
And the more we practice this kind of spontaneous thinking, the easier it becomes to tap into that like creative flow in real life speaking situations.
So it's like training your brain to think outside the box. So the takeaway here is don't overthink it. Just go with the flow.
Exactly. But getting out of our own way is just the beginning.
Okay.
Next, we need to shift our whole perspective and see these spontaneous speaking moments as gifts, not threats.
Gifts. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Right. It's easy to feel threatened when we're put on the spot, like we're being judged or something. Right.
Right.
But what if we saw it as a chance to connect with others, to share our ideas, to actually make a difference, you know?
But yeah, I'm starting to see it. But how do we actually make that shift?
Well, the speaker uses another fun game to illustrate this called the gift-giving game.
Another game. Okay.
So you and a partner exchange imaginary gifts.
Okay.
You pretend to hand them something, and they describe what's inside, but you have no clue what they'll say.
So it's all about embracing the unknown and being in the moment.
Exactly. The real fun is that you then have to explain why you gave them that particular gift
Oh, wow.
based on whatever they made up.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
And I can see how that would help you get more comfortable with like all those curveballs life throws at us.
It's a great exercise. And it shows that spontaneous speaking is really a two-way street.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about us versus them, but a shared experience of discovery and connection.
So instead of like dreading those moments,
Mm,
we can actually look forward to them.
right.
That's a game changer.
Absolutely. And this ties in perfectly with another improv principle, yes and.
Yes, and tell me more.
So in improv, yes and means you accept what your partner offers and build upon it. Instead of saying no but and shutting down their idea, you go with it and keep the energy going. It's all about collaboration.
Okay, so how does that translate to spontaneous speaking?
It's about being open to new ideas, answering questions in a way that's like constructive, and seeing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, right?
So it's not about agreeing with everything, but approaching situations with like a collaborative spirit.
Right. It's a we're in this together mindset. And honestly, that can make a huge difference in how we feel during those spontaneous moments, you know?
Yeah.
Like when we see ourselves as part of a team, we're just more likely to be confident and relaxed.
Okay, so we've tackled anxiety, we've learned to get out of our own way, and now we're seeing these opportunities as gifts.
Yeah.
What else does this video have in store for us?
The next step is crucial.
Yeah.
Slow down and listen.
Isn't that a bit obvious? Don't we all know we should listen?
Well, you'd be surprised how often we don't truly listen, especially like under pressure.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
We tend to like jump ahead, assuming we know what's being asked. But the speaker makes a great point. As communicators, our job is to serve our audience.
And we can't do that if we don't understand what they need, what they're thinking. Right.
Right. To illustrate this, the speaker brings in, you guessed it, another game.
Okay, another game. This guy loves games.
It's called the spelling game.
Okay.
So basically, you have a conversation with someone, but you have to spell out every single word.
Oh, wow. So instead of saying, how was your weekend? I would say, HOWFASYOURWEKEND.
You got it. It sounds simple, but it forces you to slow down and pay attention to every single word.
I can imagine. It would be like sending a text message one letter at a time.
And that's exactly the point. It makes you so much more aware of like all the nuances of language, the subtle tone changes, the pauses, all those things that add so much meaning.
Yeah. It's like hitting the brakes on autopilot and making yourself really tune in.
And the speaker has this awesome quote to sum it up.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, "Don't just do something, stand there."
Don't just do something, stand there. I love that. It's such a good reminder to, like, pause and understand the situation before reacting.
Absolutely. And this leads to the final step in the speaker's framework for spontaneous speaking, the power of structure.
Structure. But we're talking about being spontaneous. How does that work?
Yeah, it might seem contradictory, but structure is actually incredibly freeing when you're speaking off the cuff.
Okay.
It gives you a framework for your thoughts, which helps with anxiety and boosts your confidence.
So it's like having a mental map to guide you, even when you don't know the exact route in advance.
Exactly. And the speaker introduces two main structures that are super helpful for spontaneous speaking.
Okay.
They are problem-solution benefit and what so what now what.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the problem-solution benefit structure all about?
So it's a classic way to persuade that's been used forever, right? You start by pointing out a problem or challenge, then you present a solution, and finally you highlight the benefits of that solution.
Sounds straightforward and effective, especially when you're, like, answering a question or proposing something.
And what's great is it can be used in tons of situations, you know? It doesn't have to be about, like, literal problems. You can adapt it for opportunities, concerns, or even just sharing your viewpoint on something.
Like a multi-tool for communication.
Yeah.
Now, what about the what now what structure? That sounds kind of intriguing.
So this one's all about making your message crystal clear and like guiding your audience through your thinking.
Uh-huh.
So you start with what you want to talk about, then explain so what, like why it matters.
Okay.
And finally, you lay out now what the next steps or actions to take.
This seems perfect for, like, answering questions or explaining things.
You're right. It keeps things clear, concise, and actionable.
Yeah.
The speaker even suggests using it for introductions. Who, so, what, now, what.
Oh, interesting. So instead of just saying someone's name and title, you give context, who they are, why they matter, and what the audience can expect from them.
Exactly. It's a much more engaging and memorable way to introduce someone. Shows you've put thought into it, you know.
Okay, so we've got these two powerful structures, problem, solution, benefit, and what so, what now, what. But how do we actually put them into practice?
Well, to show how powerful structure can be, the speaker has another challenge for us. It's called the Slinky Challenge.
Okay, should have known there'd be another game.
Yeah.
This guy clearly believes in learning by doing.
Yeah.
So what's the Slinky Challenge all about?
Okay. Imagine you have to sell a Slinky to someone, right? You have to use either the problem-solution benefit or the what so, what now, what structure to create your sales pitch.
A Slinky? That's a pretty random product to sell.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so challenging and fun.
Right.
It forces you to think outside the box and use those structures in a way that's both persuasive and engaging.
I love it. It takes those structures out of the textbook and into, like, the real world of communication. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Managing anxiety, getting out our own way, seeing opportunities, listening, and harnessing structure. But before we move on, I'm curious about something. How do we handle hostile situations?
That's a great question. And the speaker acknowledges that tricky questions and situations are bound to happen, but he gives some really good advice on how to deal with them effectively.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are his top tips?
First and foremost, he emphasizes the importance of anticipation. So, before any speaking engagement, think about potential challenges and prepare for them in advance. It's like doing your homework so you're not caught off guard.
So it's about being proactive and thinking through different scenarios.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What else?
He also highlights the importance of acknowledging emotions, both yours and the audience's, you know?
Right.
When someone's hostile or confrontational, it often means they're feeling angry or frustrated or like they're not being heard. Recognizing those emotions, you know, allows you to respond with empathy.
But he cautions against actually naming the emotion, right?
Right. Saying something like, you seem angry, can just escalate things and make the person defensive.
Right.
So it's more effective to acknowledge the feeling without labeling it.
Okay.
You could say something like, I hear your concern about this issue, or I understand this is a sensitive topic.
Yeah, that's such a subtle but important difference. It addresses the emotion without putting the person on the spot.
Exactly. And he also talks about the power of reframing.
Okay.
When you get a challenging question or statement, you can kind of rephrase it in a way that shifts the conversation to a more productive place.
Can you give an example of how that would work?
Sure. Let's say someone asks, why are your prices so high?
Okay.
Instead of getting defensive, you could reframe it by saying, what you're really asking about is the value we offer.
Okay.
This lets you address the core concern without directly responding to the initial, possibly loaded question.
Yeah, that's a clever way to kind of redirect things and focus on the positives. What else does he suggest?
He emphasizes the versatility of paraphrasing.
Okay.
So when you paraphrase a question, you buy yourself time to think and make sure you understood it correctly.
Right, it's like pressing pause on the conversation so you can gather your thoughts and respond thoughtfully.
Exactly. And it also shows the other person that you're listening and trying to see their perspective.
Right.
And it can be a really powerful way to de-escalate tension and encourage a more collaborative conversation.
This video is like a gold mine of useful tips. I'm already feeling more confident about those like unplanned speaking situations. What about you? What's resonating with you the most so far?
For me, it's the emphasis on structure.
Yeah,
Having those frameworks in your back pocket can really boost your confidence when you're put on the spot.
I agree. The problem-solution benefit and what so what now? What structures are so helpful for organizing your thoughts?
Absolutely. And remember, it's all about practice. The more you use these techniques, the more natural and effective you'll become.
It's so true. And one thing I really appreciate is the reminder that spontaneous speaking doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes it's those imperfections, those unscripted moments that really connect with people.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about embracing the journey, being present, and trusting that you have something valuable to share even when you're speaking off the cuff.
Speaking of valuable things to share, the speaker also touched on using humor in spontaneous speaking.
Oh, yeah.
It's something we all wonder about, right? To joke or not to joke?
He acknowledges that humor can be a fantastic way to connect with an audience, but it can also be really risky.
Yeah, I've definitely seen jokes fall flat. It can be
Yeah.
super awkward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the speaker points out that a failed joke can actually do more harm than good, Like, it's better to not try to be funny at all than to make a joke that doesn't land.
So what's the secret to using humor effectively in spontaneous speaking? Is there like a safe way to do it?
The speaker suggests self-deprecating humor as a safe bet.
Oh, that makes sense. It's less likely to offend anyone, and it can make you seem more relatable and approachable.
Exactly. He also emphasizes testing your material beforehand.
Right.
If you're unsure about a joke, try it out with friends or family first.
It's like a comedian testing their jokes at an open mic night before a big show.
Precisely. But if you're still hesitant, his advice is simple. Don't force it.
Okay.
If you're not naturally funny, it's better to focus on delivering a clear and engaging message than trying to be someone you're not.
Authenticity is key as always. It's better to be genuine than to force humor that doesn't feel natural. Now, another aspect of communication the speaker touched on was the challenge of remote audiences.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one these days, right?
Absolutely.
With so much communication happening virtually, we need to know how to engage people through a screen.
What were some of his insights on that?
He really stressed being mindful of the fact that not everyone is physically present in the room. You have to acknowledge the virtual audience and make an effort to include them.
So instead of like talking at the screen, we need to interact with the people on the other side.
Exactly. He suggests techniques like polls, virtual whiteboards, or even just asking open-ended questions to invite responses from both the in-person and remote participants.
It's all about creating a sense of shared experience, even when we're not physically together.
It's got it. He also talked about the importance of variety and pacing.
Okay.
When you're presenting remotely, it's helpful to break things up with interactive elements to keep people engaged.
So it's about finding a balance between providing information and creating opportunities for discussion and interaction.
Exactly. And I think this actually applies to in-person presentations as well,
Right.
Variety is key to keeping any audience engaged no matter where they are.
Now, another question that came up in the video's Q&A was about handling hostile situations, particularly in a legal context that's a high-stakes environment.
It is. It's all about navigating cross-examination effectively. And the speaker offered some great advice for those high-pressure situations.
Okay, what were his key takeaways?
He stressed the importance of preparation.
Okay.
Before going into any situation where you might face tough questions, it's crucial to identify key themes and gather supporting evidence. You need to have your facts straight and be ready to back up your claims.
So it's about doing your homework and being prepared for anything. What else did he say?
He highlighted the power of paraphrasing.
Right.
As a way to buy time and clarify questions. It lets you make sure you understand what's being asked, reframe it if necessary, and gather your thoughts before responding.
Paraphrasing is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
What other advice did he give for those intense situations?
He suggested using one of the structures we talked about earlier, like the problem-solution benefit or the what so what now what framework,
Right.
to organize your response and make sure you address all aspects of the question.
So even under pressure, we can use those structures to provide clarity and direction.
Precisely. And finally, he reminded us that remaining calm and professional is crucial in any hostile situation. You need to stay focused on the facts, Avoid personal attacks and maintain a respectful tone, even if the other person isn't doing the same.
That takes a lot of composure, especially when the pressure's on. Now, something else that really resonated with me was the speaker's advice on dealing with cultural differences in communication.
Oh, yeah. Cultural sensitivity is so important in today's world. It's something we all need to be more aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What were some of the key points he made about that?
He emphasized that the principles of spontaneous speaking apply across cultures,
Uh,
but we need to be sensitive to the specific norms and expectations of our audience.
right.
It's about doing our research, understanding the nuances, and adapting our communication style accordingly.
It's a reminder that communication is a two-way street, and we need to be sensitive to the context we're in.
Exactly. He gave the example of giving a presentation in another country where the audience might have different expectations about participation, humor, or even eye contact.
That's so important to keep in mind. It's about being respectful, adaptable, and always willing to learn from others. This deep dive has been incredible. We've uncovered so many valuable insights about spontaneous speaking.
And we've had some fun along the way.
Yeah.
I especially enjoyed those interactive games the speaker used to illustrate the concepts.
Right.
It made the learning experience much more engaging.
I agree. The speaker's enthusiasm was contagious. He clearly loves this topic and is passionate about helping others become more effective communicators.
Absolutely. His use of humor and personal anecdotes made the presentation even more relatable and memorable.
Now, thinking about everything we've discussed, what are your top 3 takeaways from this video?
That's a great question. Let me think. I think my top 3 would have to be, first, the importance of managing anxiety.
Okay.
The speaker's techniques for acknowledging, reframing, and being present are so valuable. They're
Yeah.
tools everyone can benefit from.
Those are going in my mental toolkit for sure. What's number 2 on your list?
Second, the power of structure. Having those frameworks to organize your thoughts can be a game changer when you're speaking off the cuff. The problem-solution benefit and what so what now, what structures are so versatile and easy to apply.
They really are.
Yeah.
Okay, what about your number 3 takeaway?
And finally, the importance of listening. It sounds simple, but it's so easy to get caught up in our own heads and miss what others are saying.
Yeah.
That quote, "Don't just do something, stand there," is such a powerful reminder to slow down and truly listen.
I love that quote. Those are great insights. Now, what about your top 3 takeaways? I'm curious to hear what resonated most with you. Okay, let's see. My number 1 takeaway is the importance of getting out of your own way.
Okay.
That whole dare to be dull concept really stuck with me. It's a reminder to let go of perfectionism and just be present in the moment.
Such a powerful concept. It's so
Yeah.
liberating when you can let go of that need to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My second takeaway is the idea of viewing spontaneous speaking opportunities as gifts, not threats.
Yeah.
That simple shift in perspective can make a world of difference in how we approach those situations.
Right.
Instead of dreading them, we can start to see them as chances to connect and make an impact.
It's about embracing the unexpected and focusing on the possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my third takeaway is the power of paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a versatile tool for buying time, clarifying questions, and ensuring that everyone's on the same page.
It's a communication superpower.
I think so too.
Hmm.
We could probably talk about this video for hours, but we're running out of time for today.
Yeah.
What's one final thought we can leave the listener with, something for them to ponder after this deep dive?
I think a great point to ponder is the interconnectedness of all these concepts.
Yeah.
We've talked about managing anxiety, getting out of our own way, listening, and using structure.
Right.
But these aren't separate techniques.
Correct.
They all work together to create a more holistic approach to spontaneous speaking.
It's like a dance where all the steps flow together seamlessly.
Exactly. When we manage our anxiety, we're more able to get out of our own way and really listen. And when we listen attentively, we can use structure to organize our thoughts and deliver a clear and compelling message.
It really is a beautiful synergy. And I think the key to mastering spontaneous speaking is to practice these techniques in a way that feels authentic and true to you.
That's a great point. It's not about memorizing a bunch of rules, right?
Right.
It's about developing a mindful and flexible approach to communication.
Exactly. And that's what makes this video so valuable. It gives you a framework for thinking about spontaneous speaking in a way that's both practical and empowering.
It's like someone handing you a toolbox full of amazing tools and then encouraging you to use those tools to create your own unique masterpiece.
I love that analogy. It's about taking these techniques and making them your own, finding what works best for you.
Absolutely. It's about discovering your own unique voice as a spontaneous speaker.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this topic.
There's so much to explore, and I encourage you to go back to the video, experiment with these techniques, and see what clicks for you.
And remember, it's all about practice, being open to the unexpected, and most importantly, having fun along the way.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of spontaneous speaking. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of knowledge and ideas.
Until then, keep those conversations flowing. And remember, you never know when you'll be called upon to speak up, so be ready to shine.